kids podcast.
You can go slow.
A kids podcast about.
We know you value what you put in front of your kids, especially when it comes to screens and podcasts. That's why we're excited to share a new podcast from our friends at Sleepiest, creating bedtime stories to help your kids fall asleep fast.
Hello, Abby here. If you've got children and find bedtime's a struggle, I'd like to tell you about Coco Sleep, a children's story podcast designed to make bedtime a dream. Coco Sleep turns a chaotic bedtime into cozy bonding time. The stories are delivered in a pace that gently slows. Rumour has it that no one's ever heard an ending. So search Coco Sleep on your favourite podcast app and let's make bedtime a dream. That's KOKO Sleep, and I'll see you there.
At this moment, across the United States, in places like Baltimore, Maryland, and Jackson, Mississippi, access to clean and safe water is becoming almost impossible. This water crisis in the United States is worth noting. You may have heard on the news recently that the capital of Mississippi, the city of Jackson, is without drinkable water. As of this recording, Jackson is heading into its 7th week of a boil water advisory. Over 180,000 people in the city of Jackson and in areas around the city have been affected. When city governments ask their residents to boil their water, it means that the water coming out of the taps and faucets is not safe to drink, to bathe in, or to cook with unless it is boiled first. At first, the citizens of Jackson were told that just boiling their water would get rid of any dirt or bacteria. But about 2 weeks ago, the governor of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, issued a state of emergency and announced that the city would not have running water indefinitely. In his press conference, the governor told the residents of Jackson not to drink the water for any reason. In recent weeks, pictures and videos from Jackson have shown water running in people's sinks that is black, brown, or otherwise unimaginably unclean. Since the governor's announcement, the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency began giving out water to Jackson citizens. However, news reports have shown that the lines for clean water are sometimes hours long. Sadly, Jackson isn't the only city in the country experiencing a water problem right now. On September 5th, 2022, Maryland's biggest city, Baltimore, issued a boil water advisory for parts of the city. Residents of Baltimore were shocked to learn that their water was contaminated with a dangerous E. coli bacteria. According to the Baltimore City Department of Public Works, E. coli are bacteria whose presence indicates that the water may be contaminated with human or animal wastes. Human pathogens in these wastes can cause short-term effects, such as diarrhea, cramps, nausea, headaches, or other symptoms. They may pose a greater health risk for infants, young children, the elderly, and people with severely compromised immune systems. That means if a person drinks water that has E. coli, they could become very, very sick. Jackson and Baltimore are the most recent examples of water insecurity in the United States, but they are definitely not the first. 8 years ago, in 2014, the city of Flint, Michigan, experienced a similar crisis. Residents of the city reported that their water tasted and smelled bad, and not long after, dangerous levels of the metal lead and other poisonous elements were found in Flint's water supply. The residents of Flint suffered for years, and to this day, the city is still recovering from this water crisis. So why is clean water so important to us? Why do these water crises matter? Sometimes, when you live in a country or a city that has regular access to clean water, it might be easy to forget just how important water is to our survival as human beings. What do you already know about water? What have you learned about it at school or at home? Maybe you've heard that over half of our bodies as human beings are made up of water. That means that we are more water than we are anything else. Because of this, water impacts our ability to digest food, to regulate how hot or cold our bodies get, and even to heal from injuries. Not only that, we use water to bathe and to shower, to flush our toilets, and to clean our clothes and our houses. Water is critical to our everyday lives because without it, we can't grow healthy food or the trees and plants that keep our neighborhoods cool. We also need clean water for the pets in our homes and the animals on our farms. Cats, dogs, cows, and chickens all need clean water just as much as we do. This is why the United Nations has recognized the access to clean water and sanitation as human rights. According to the UN, the right to water entitles everyone to have access to sufficient, safe, acceptable, physically accessible, and affordable water for personal and domestic use. And the right to sanitation entitles everyone to have physical and affordable access to sanitation in all spheres of life that is safe, hygienic, secure, and socially and culturally acceptable, and that provides privacy and ensures dignity. Dignity means being worthy of honor and respect. Every person on this planet is deserving of the dignity and privacy that the UN mentions when talking about the right to water. The city leadership of Flint, Baltimore, and Jackson are not honoring or respecting their residents. And even more importantly, they are putting the health and safety of their citizens at risk. The last time we talked about climate change, we talked about the fact that unlike a hurricane or an earthquake, climate change doesn't just happen. It is a man-made issue. The same is true for these big water problems affecting cities like Baltimore and Jackson. Water doesn't just suddenly become undrinkable overnight. Did you know that in the United States and most countries around the world, citizens have to pay for their water? And did you also know that there are a lot of people responsible for keeping our water clean? Usually, the cost of water is given to the city to help ensure that the water that comes out of our taps is clean, clear, and safe for us to use. In cities and counties across the United States, there are government offices and committees full of water experts and people responsible for this kind of water management. Water management includes making sure that the pipes that pump water to our cities are new and up to date, and that the buildings and facilities that clean our water are checked regularly. In Baltimore, Maryland, Jackson, Mississippi, and Flint, Michigan, water emergencies began when the city or the county failed to take care of water management. After decades of the city failing to do its job with water management, Jackson's residents have been facing shutoffs or boil water advisories for several years now. The mayor of Jackson, Chokwe Antar Lumumba, says that it could take up to $1 billion to fix Jackson's water systems. In Baltimore, city officials say that illegal dumping from some of the city's construction projects have led to the E. coli now contaminating the water. And in Flint, the water crisis began when city officials decided to cut costs by no longer using safe water from Detroit, but instead pumping water from the contaminated and unsafe Flint River. The results of these poor decisions by city officials in charge of the water has been horrible for all of these cities, with residents left unsure where they can get safe and reliable water, or if they ever will again. As always, we are deeply connected to each other. When the mostly Black residents of cities like Baltimore, Jackson, and Flint are facing water insecurity, it is all of our jobs to stand up and help them. But how do we do it? In 2016, when she was just 8 years old, Mari Kopany, a resident of Flint, Michigan, wrote a letter to then President Obama about the ongoing water crisis in her city. Her letter led to over $100 million in national aid being sent to the city of Flint. Since then, Mari has been a water advocate for other cities like hers across the country. She's helped raise money for people facing water crises and has donated hundreds of gallons of water to people in need. Mari is just one example of how kids like you can take on the neglect and the harm that people are facing at the hands of governments that are not stepping up to do their jobs. Access to clean water and sanitation are human rights. We can't forget that. So your homework is to find out more about the water issues in Mississippi and in Maryland, and to ask the adults in your life to do the same. Maybe you can organize a water drive at your school or in your neighborhood. Like Mari, you can write letters to the president or even your U.S. congressperson, asking them to send emergency help to the people of Jackson and Baltimore. In our show notes, you will find links for how to donate money to support people on the ground in those two cities. You can also ask the adults in your life to donate what money they can to help people in these times of crisis. Together, we can protect each other's water and ensure that our neighbors have what they need to live safely and with dignity. I'm Nicole, and this is Worth Noting. This episode of Worth Noting was written by me, Nicole Young, editing and production support by Matthew Winner. Audio production is by Chad Michael Snavely and the team at Sound On Studios. Our executive producer is Jelani Memory. And this show was brought to you by a kids podcast about. If you've enjoyed the show, consider giving us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. And of course, you are invited to always listen to other podcasts made for kids just like you by visiting akidsco.com.
Hi, I'm Matthew. I'm the head of audio at A Kids Co, and I also host a kids book about the podcast and Worth Noting. I just wanted to say thanks. Thanks for listening to our shows in your classroom or in your bedroom, over breakfast or over dinner, on your drive or on your downtime. No matter what you do between this listen and the next time you tune in, thanks. You're awesome. And it's because of kids like you that we get to make cool stuff like this. See ya.